Hello, everybody, and good evening. I'm Amy Johnson Crow, and thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, I thought it would be a good time to take a look back 1 year at the release of the 1950 census, one of the largest groups of genealogy records that has been released in a very long time. And I know that there was a lot of buildup to the release of the records in April 1st of last year, 2022. And a lot has actually changed since the release of those records and how we can access them. And we've also learned more about actually using the records. So I thought that this would be a good opportunity to kind of review where we were a year ago, but more importantly, what we can do with those records now. I know sometimes we get a little jaded in our thinking of family history, and we think that family history has to be something, many hundreds of years ago. We have to get at least back to the 1800s, if not even earlier. But those records that are more recent, they can still have value to us in our genealogy, even if you've been doing this for a very long time. I've heard from so many people who have been using the 1950 census really as sort of a way to introduce other people in their family to genealogy. And it's been so fascinating to talk to older members of the family and show them their entry in the 1950 census, and it just sparks all sorts of memories. If you're fortunate enough that you have someone in your family who was in the 1950 census, or if you yourself, if you were in the 1950 census, record what you remember about that neighborhood. Sometimes just seeing the names or seeing a description or seeing a house number, it will just spark all sorts of memories. I remember doing it with my parents in the 1940 census, and I tell you, it was just like walking through their childhood neighborhoods. It was absolutely fascinating to do that. But before we get too far into this, let me take a quick look to see if we have any questions or anything. Please feel free to leave your questions and comments down below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on Facebook. Trying to keep an eye on both of them tonight. We'll see how successful I am. But what I want to do first is take a quick look. This is actually kind of, I don't want to say embarrassing, but we had fun with this. If I can bring this back up. 1 year ago, well, a little over a year now, this was midnight on April 1st as the census was actually being released. You know that you're a genealogy nerd when you buy party hats and party decorations to celebrate the release of the 1950 census. Yes, I did that. And I know a lot of you watching did that too. Hey, if you were part of that live stream, part of that launch party, hey, let me know in the comments if you were part of that. So if we just had a little bit of fun with that. Yeah, Bev says she was there. All right, Bev. Yeah, had party decorations and everything. But I think I went to Party City or one of those party outlet stores, and they did not have any 1950 census decorations. I had to make do. Can you believe they did not have census party decorations? What were they thinking, right? Craziness. All right, enough silliness. Let's take a look. What I want to do is show some ways that we can get into the 1950 census right now. It has changed a little bit since it was first released. I know Family Search at the time was really heavily promoting a special URL that would take you right to the 1950 census. and Ancestry had their own landing page. Well, those have kind of faded away. I bet those URLs still work, but not the best, easiest way to get into it right now if you ever forget what that URL is. So let's take a look at what can we do to get directly into the 1950 census. Sometimes you want to take a look at one specific collection, whether you're on Ancestry or you're on Family Search. Our tendency when we go into one of the big genealogy websites is we want to just start a search. And that goes across the entire website. But what if you want to get specifically into just the 1950 census? Well, here on Ancestry, when you go into Ancestry and you get logged in, when you're here on the home page, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but if you scroll down just a little bit, over here on the right-hand side of the page, I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Over here on the right-hand side of the page, we have this special record collections. And the very first one are the different US Census collections. And the very first one is 1950. So if we click on that, 1950 here from the Ancestry homepage, come on Ancestry, you can do it. There we go. It will take you directly to the 1950 census collection. You don't have to do a search from the main page and then filter it down. You can do a search directly here. Not only can you do a search, and I do like how Ancestry gives us a lot of different ways that we can search it. So, we can, of course, put in names. We can use wildcards if we want. We can include other people in the family, or I should say in the household. And then we can also take a look at some other ways that we can filter that down. But we can also browse if we want to. Let's say that you've been searching and you just haven't found them. And I should back up half a step, because if you're just now getting into genealogy, you might not realize that the 1950 census is one of the first collections that they have taken the original well, I shouldn't say the original records. They've taken the digitized records, the digitized images, and Ancestry, working together with Family Search, ran them through handwriting recognition software, which gave a really good, surprisingly good first pass at how, to give us an index. So instead of having to wait months and months and months for any kind of index, we started having indexes within, it was just a few days that we started having indexes for some locations, and that was fabulous. Then Ancestry took that data, handed it off to Family Search, and then Family Search, with its core of volunteers, I know many of you out there worked on the volunteer. It wasn't indexing, it was really more verification. And you could go in and compare what that handwriting recognition software read as the name, compare that to the image, and then make corrections as necessary. And honestly, it was really, really good. I mean, we got more records, better records, faster than ever before, certainly faster than we had with 1940. And 1940 was pretty fast. I was involved with that. We thought that was fast. It got even faster with 1950. But let's say that you do want to you just want to browse. Maybe you haven't found them. Maybe it's a name that is always horribly misspelled, and you just haven't found them doing a search. Well, when you're on this 1950 census page here on Ancestry, and we'll take a look at Family Search here in just a minute, over here on the right, over here where it says browse this collection, you can select the state. So let's say we'll just pick Kentucky. Then you can pick the county. We'll say Bath. And then pick your populated place. We'll go with Sharpsburg. And then if there's more than one enumeration district, you have to pick which one. So here we have enumeration district 6-1, which is Sharpsburg Town, or enumeration district 6-2, which is that part of that, what they call a magisterial district. That's the part that's outside of Sharpsburg. So if you have an ancestor who was close to town but not actually in town, that might be the enumeration district that you want. So then you can just click on that enumeration district. And when you first click in there, it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? This was just sort of the cover sheet for the enumerators to use. So it's actually kind of neat. We can see who the clerks were. We can see how they tallied the population. And we can just see some other neat things. And down here is when we get into the Washington office. But these clerks up here, these are the local people that were working on this. So if you have ancestors in this area, maybe not even necessarily in that specific enumeration district, but they were living nearby, it's always fun to take a look at that, because who knows, maybe your ancestor was one of the enumerators or one of the clerks. So this little cover sheet can be kind of fun. All right. But then we can just use the little browse arrows like we have over here, just like on any other collection on Ancestry. We have you can keep scrolling, keep browsing your images. But yeah, you can just keep browsing and browsing. If you want to, you could open up the little film strip down at the bottom. Again, and at this point, it's just like browsing any other image collection on Ancestry. One thing that I do want to point out, and I'm going to show you an example of this here in just a minute, is some things that you want to watch out for with the 1950 census. Pay attention to these sample lines, because the people who landed on that sample line, they were asked additional questions. So here we have Ronald, looks like Ronald Harry or Haney. He was asked additional questions, and those are at the bottom of the page. So he was on sample line 4. Well, here are the rest of the questions that were asked of him. Now, he was only 7 at the time, so he's not going to have the most robust answers down here. But pay attention if anybody in that household falls on one of those sample lines, because they will have more answers down at the bottom of the page. And again, you just match up. So like here we have Roy Sapp, who is on sample line 29. Well, then we can just go down to the bottom here and look for 29. We see the 29, and those are his additional answers. All right. So that's how you can get directly into the 1950 census on Ancestry, both how you can search it and how you can browse it. Let's take a quick look at Family Search. Now, when you go to familysearch.org, first, make sure that you sign in. It's always a good idea to be signed into Family Search. You get more features that way. It's free. You might as well make an account and just get signed in. It's not quite as obvious on Family Search how to find the 1950 census. But when we're here on Family Search, here at the top, click on Search, and then click on Records. Now, I'm guessing many of you have been on this page at some point or another. And again, it's very tempting to just put in a name here on the search. And you can certainly do that. But again, that's then searching across all of Family Search's searchable databases. But what if we want specifically the 1950 census? If we scroll down the page just a little bit, we can find this section here called Collection Title. Okay, down here, Collection Title. And you don't have to know the exact title that you're looking for, but if you want a specific census, typing in the year would help. So maybe we just type in 1950, and maybe we say 1950 census. And now we see that it's giving us the option for United States 1950 census. If we click on that, that takes us directly to the 1950 census page. So now instead of searching across all of Family Search's searchable databases, now we're looking just in 1950. So that can really help us narrow our focus. Of course, we can do a search up here at the top, but again, what if we want to browse? You do have the option, and don't let this number scare you. When it says browse all 7,849,989 images, that could feel a little daunting, but go ahead and click on it. Now, how the images are presented on Family Search, at least for the 1950 census, and I've noticed this for some other collections as well, it might look a little different than what you're used to seeing on Family Search. But over here on the right, there are a couple different ways that you can sort of drill down to where you want. You can either work with these links that are over here on the right, or you can do a search up here at the top. Let me show you first how to work with these little links here. So presuming you don't want a state, Alabama through California, you can click to show all 51. And now we have the states, we have the District of Columbia. Let's say that we want Indiana. And then again, now it'll show us the 92, in this case, 92 counties of Indiana. So you could, again, scroll down through. We'll pick Benton County. And now it looks like, okay, I have all of these choices over here for Benton County, but I want to drill down a little bit more. Unless you're working with a wide monitor, a really wide monitor, you might not see that you can scroll over. And I'm scrolling from down here at the bottom. There's a little scroll bar at the bottom going left to right. If you scroll all the way over to the right, or you could also close this little sidebar. Now we can see those descriptions of the different enumeration districts within Benton County, Indiana. And we can scroll down and get the specific one that we want. But what if that feels a little clunky to you? What if you don't want to do it that way? Well, another way you can do it, and we'll refine the search. Let's say that you want Emmett County, Michigan. Well, up here at the top where it says place, and I'm clicking up here in the very upper right-hand corner where it says place, I can type in Emmett, and I just typed in Emmett, MI, and I noticed that one of the options that it gave me was Emmett, Michigan, which is Emmett County, Michigan. So if I click on that, and then I have to come down here to the very bottom and click update. So if nothing happens, look to see if that update button had popped in. But again, we can scroll over and we can see those different enumeration districts and then click the one we want. Maybe we want the village of Alanson. So we can just click on that and it will take us right into the images. There's that first cover image like we saw before, and then we get into the actual census itself. And when you look at this, you think, well, how do I move from page to page? You can either use the little thumbnails at the bottom and click on those. Or if you don't see arrows, if you just hover your mouse, then the little navigation arrows will pop up. And you can either use your mouse to scroll in and out, or you can use the plus and minus. I wish that I had people in Alanson, Michigan in 1950, because can we just take a look at that handwriting? I mean, is that gorgeous or is that gorgeous? I was going to thank the person, but ironically, the enumerator's signature is darn near illegible. But the important part of the census is very legible. One thing I do want to point out, let's see if I can find an example here. Let's see, I'm not finding an example here real quick. Come on. Oh, here we go. So you might notice that we have some houses that are listed as vacant, like we have here at the top. The house at 79, whatever street, looks like on M68. House number 79 is vacant, meaning nobody is living there right now. On the other hand, when we get down here to house 82, it says no one at home. See sheet 72, lines 19 to 21. And a lot of people have gotten very confused by this. They see the no one at home and they think, oh, well, my family was missed. They didn't enumerate my family. Well, this whole C sheet, in this case, sheet 72, the enumerators, the 1950 census was a little bit different in that the 1950 census was a little bit different in that the enumerators not only were encouraged to go back to find the people who weren't home the first time, but they were also instructed to make note of that. And then as they're compiling, it's like, okay, nobody at house number 82 is home. I'm going to mark that no one home. And then later when they would go back and do their revisits, those revisits begin on page 71. The Census Bureau arbitrarily chose page 71 to be the first sheet of the revisits. Okay, so if you happen to be doing more of a neighborhood study, make sure that you're following through and looking at those later sheets, starting with sheet 71, to fill in the gaps of all of those households where it says no one was home. Let's see here. Apologies that you didn't see what I was talking about. I thought I had that showing. Oh my goodness. Don't you love it when technology works or not? Let's try this. Okay, if somebody can let me know in the chat, hopefully you are seeing what I'm presenting. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Apologies for that. Yeah, I usually do have someone who is moderating, but I did not have that tonight. My apologies. The joys of live internet. Okay, so could see no one at home record, but nothing before that. Oh my goodness. Did you see anything that I've shown on Family Search? Oh, going back to see how far back. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll try this again. I apologize. I don't know why the screen was not. Let's see what's going on here. I have clicked back to Ancestry. All right, very quickly, we will go back through Ancestry. Don't know why that didn't work. All right, on Ancestry, when you are there, when you are on Ancestry, if you want to get specifically into the 1950 census, if you scroll down a little bit, over here on, and this is on the main page, over here on the right-hand side, scroll down and you'll see this section for special record collections. And then one of the collections that they have is US Census records, and the very first one is the 1950 census. All right. So on Ancestry, of course, you can, now instead of searching across all of Ancestry, we are searching just the 1950 census. And we can fill in as many or as few things as we want in the search. But if we want to browse a specific area, because sometimes you can do all the searching and it still doesn't pop up for some reason. We don't know why, but maybe the name was just incredibly misspelled, or the enumerator had really, really bad handwriting, or you just, whatever reason, you can't find them and you want to browse where you think that they were living. Here from the 1950 census page on Ancestry, over here on the right, we can browse the collection. So we can choose a state, let's say Iowa. We can choose a county, and it'll show us, in this case, all of the counties in Iowa. So let's say Buchanan. Then we have to choose what they call a populated place. This is usually a town, a village, a township. We'll say Byron. In this case, Byron just has one enumeration district. Sometimes there will be multiples. Let me see if I can find one very quickly. I must have picked like the smallest county in all of Iowa. Here we go. Okay, I went back to Appanoose County and I looked at the populated place of Centerville. Now it's giving me all of what the Census Bureau called an enumeration district. And it's giving us a general outline or general description of what that enumeration district is. So we can kind of tell which part of the town or which part of the township we actually want to look at. So I'm just going to pick this one here, enumeration district 49. And it puts us into that cover page for the enumeration district. And then we can just use, just like any other collection on Ancestry, we can use their arrows to just keep paging through the different pages of the census. Now, what I was talking about a moment ago is here where we have house number 4 on North 9th Street. House number 4 and actually house number 5 as well. They both say no one at home, see page 71, or the other house was see page 75, and it gives us specific line numbers. But you might have noticed down here at the bottom where Ancestry is telling us how many images are in this enumeration district, there are only 28 images. So how do we have page 71 or page 75 if there are only 28 images? The Census Bureau decided that they knew that the enumerators were going to miss some people the first time around. So they told the enumerators, hey, make a note of that. And then when you start to revisit households, begin numbering those pages onto page 71. Page 71 is what they use for every enumeration district to start recording the revisits. So what you would want to do is you'll find the sheet number up here in the upper right-hand corner of the census page. So here we have sheet number 1. Well, we want to get to sheet 71. Well, I'm just going to come down here and I can see that there are 28 images in this enumeration district. I'm just going to randomly pick image number 25 and see how close that gets me. And again, if I look up here in the right-hand corner, oh, I'm already on sheet 73. So I overshot it just a little bit. Well, I can go back 2 images, and then here is sheet 71. But I want to show you the sheet before page 71 in this enumeration district was sheet number 20. So this enumeration district goes from sheets 1 to 20, and then it skips to sheet 71. That doesn't mean that everything between 20 and 71 are missing. Remember, 71 is just that arbitrary number that the Census Bureau picked, that's where we're going to start numbering the revisits. Okay? So hopefully everybody could see that. Let's take a quick look over on Family Search. Now, how I got here on Family Search, let me go back to the Family Search main page. Make sure that you're logged in. And what you're going to want to do to get specifically into the 1950 census is to click on Search, then click on Records. But if you want to get specifically into the 1950 census, scroll down just a little bit to the section Find a Collection and where it says Collection Title. In this field, type in 1950, and now you'll see all of the searchable collections that have 1950 in the title. Now, that's still quite a few, so let's also add the word Census. So now we have the United States 1950 census. We can click on that, and that takes us specifically to the 1950 census collection on Family Search. Do we not have Family Search? Okay, I think I see what's going on. Let me try something. Let me try something here. All right. Are we back to seeing Family Search now? Oh my goodness. Why is this not working? Oh, technology, you are killing me tonight. Okay, hang on. We're gonna figure this out together. We're going to remove that all the way. Now we're going to try this again. Okay, how are we now? Yes? All right, yay! Oh my goodness, how frustrating is that? Okay, so from Family Search, if you just want to find just the 1950 census, go to Family Search, get logged in, click on Search, click on Records. And then instead of doing the search, scroll down a little bit and you can type in 1950 because this is going to look for collection titles. So if I type in 1950, it's giving me all of the collections that have 1950 in the title. There are quite a few. So if I add the word census, now I see that it has the 1950 census, the United States 1950 census. I can click on that and boom, now we are in just the 1950 census in Family Search. Oh goodness, that was a long way of getting there. Now, of course, you can search, but if you want to browse, and I will say, sometimes in fact, you usually know that you want more search options. If you just click the more options, that gives you the place where you can add a spouse or add parents or something like that. You can add the birth date of the person or, the birth year. But let's say that we do want to browse the images. I know it looks daunting to see 7.8 million images, but if we click on this, hopefully it will keep working. Crossing fingers. You can either use the filters over on the right, and if you don't see your state right away, just click on the Show All 51, and you can click the state that you want. I clicked on Indiana. If you don't see the county you want right away, click on the Show All again, and then you can click on the county you want. Maybe you want Dearborn County. Now, if your screen isn't wide enough to see the whole thing, down here at the bottom, they do give you a little left to right scroller. And that's what you want because you want to see the descriptions. You want to see those enumeration district descriptions to see which part of, in this case, Dearborn County, Indiana, that you want to take a look at. And then as you're scrolling through and you find the one that you want, maybe you want Hogan Township, when you click on that, then it will take you right to those images for that particular enumeration district like we had on Ancestry. All right, I'm going to try one more thing very quickly. Hopefully the technology will work. Oh my goodness, this is craziness tonight. Craziness, I'm telling you. Because what I wanted to show you was one more example of something that I don't think we realized was going to be in the 1950 census when it was released, because nobody could see the images before they became public. So we didn't quite know what to expect once we got into it. I mean, we knew that, there was a change that college students were supposed to be enumerated. If they were living away at college, they were supposed to be enumerated at college. We knew that members of the U.S. military who were stationed on a foreign base or I should say a base in a foreign country, they were not enumerated. I mean, they were counted, but it was more of a statistical sample. There are no individual forms that those service members filled out. Now, if they were stationed in the States, then they should be enumerated in their, where they were stationed in the U.S. So we knew that, but there's one thing that I don't think we realized before we actually got into the images. And that is, hopefully you're seeing this. Are you seeing a 1950 census image? Hopefully. Hopefully it's working this time. Yay! Something that they started doing with the 1950 census, and we did not see this on previous censuses, except for a few places where enumerators would kind of take it upon themselves to make notes. In the 1950 census, the enumerators were encouraged to make notes, and right there on the census. I have seen so many instances where the enumerator would say, here's where I turned left on Main Street, or here I'm going south on Chestnut Drive. And you can literally see how they walked through the enumeration district. So that's always kind of fun. But they also left some other interesting things. And I think that they were instructed to give explanations for things that were a little out of the ordinary. So I know that this image is a little bit hard to read, but one thing that I encourage everyone to do is when they're in the census, sometimes these notes are in the middle of the page like they are here. So here we have all of the people listed, and then we have a notes section before we get into those supplemental questions. Sometimes the notes will be towards the top of the page. Now, usually, at least what I've seen, the enumerators would make like a little caret character and then number them, and then they would number their notes, kind of like a way of making footnotes. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to find, and they're really easy to miss at first. So what I encourage people to do is when they find someone in the census, look on that page to see if there are notes anywhere. And if there are, try to match the note to where they're referencing it. So here we see that this enumerator has left several notes. We have notes 1, 2, and 3, and even 4 and 5. Okay. And this person doesn't have the best handwriting, but you can start to see, let me zoom in a little bit here, that they left a little caret, okay, and a number 2, and another caret and a number 2. And then scrolling down a little bit, here's this caret and a number 3. And it's for the household of Clarence and Ethel Moyer. Now, when we look down at the bottom for note number 3, scroll down a little bit. I'm going to read it to you because it's blurry to read even on my screen. It's not the crispest of images. So, but note number 3 says, house, and here's where I'm talking about down here. Okay. It says, house not visible from the road. Okay. Information given by neighbors. Reputation and physical condition of occupants is such that was advised not to get a personal interview. And then it goes on to say, man was in jail most of last year. Sample question 14, and then parentheses, it says 30 to 31C may not be accurate. Marital status, also doubtful. I have never seen censuses where they would actually go into that much detail when something was out of the ordinary. And some enumerators are a little bit more verbose than others. There are some enumeration districts where there are very few notes, but I tell you, if you do find on the page where your ancestor is, if there are notes, try to match up that little note with where it's referencing on the page, because it could give you a ton more information. I saw an example where the wife was considerably older than the husband, and the enumerator wrote that she doubted both of their ages. She didn't think that the wife was actually, I think she was like 25. She reported being 25 years older than her husband. And the enumerator had his doubts. So that was fun. And sometimes I will say, when you're trying to match up the little notes to see where they're referencing, sometimes the little notes will be near the household number. Sometimes it'll be near the person's name. Sometimes if it's dealing with maybe their occupation, the footnote could be actually over in that occupation column. It really varies truly from enumerator to enumerator. So you do have to kind of track it down. But if you ever see notes on the page of the census, make sure you're matching them up to where it's referencing on that page. Yeah, I mean, it's really, I love that they did that in the 1950 census. All right. Oh, let's see if we have any questions besides, hey, I can't see the screen. Bev says, I found a note on a family I was researching saying that the family was usually on relief. That surprised me. Not my family, by the way. Yeah, and it really is interesting to see what notes the enumerators would put in there. Sometimes you do see notes of, hey, this information was provided by a neighbor, or I had to talk to one of the children, or something like that. So you can get a little bit of an insight as to how accurate or not that information might be. There was one that I saw, and I should have kept it because it was such a great example. The man was still working, but he was asked some of the extra, he landed on one of those sample lines, and down at the bottom in those supplemental questions, they do ask more about your work history. And it talked about how long he was off of work because he had fallen into a fire and was actually badly burned. And so he wasn't able to work for a lot of the previous year. So yeah, you just never know what you're going to find when you start digging into those notes. Definitely pay attention there. So again, apologies for the, I don't know what was going on with the tech, because from my side, it looked like everybody was seeing everything. So, I will look into that. I had a little gremlin in the system. But sometimes that happens with our genealogy. Sometimes gremlins do pop in. So what do? We try a different way. And sometimes when we're doing a search and we're not finding our people, maybe we change up our search. We try a different search strategy, or we go in and we browse the images if we have a good idea where they were living. So, think about different ways when things aren't showing up like you think that they should. When you're doing your searching, maybe try searching for his middle name. If you know that his name was William Henry Jones, well, was he going by Henry and not William like you had been searching for? If she has been married again, making sure that you're searching for her by the name that she would be using at the time. Maybe if you're looking for your Smith family, or like I have to research Johnson's, sometimes researching the head of household won't pay off because you're searching for John Johnson, but is there somebody with a more unusual name living in the household? Maybe searching for them. Sometimes putting in more information, or maybe you've added too many things into that search field. So maybe just playing around with some different search terms to see what you can find. Patricia asks, I've had some trouble early on getting it to download so I could print it to fill a sheet of paper. Is that getting better, or is it user error? It's really going to be hard if you're talking about getting the entire census form, the entire page on one page, because that's actually a very big image. They weren't working on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. They were working with big ledger books. So trying to take that and then downloading it and then trying to get it to all fit on one sheet of paper, that's really going to be compressing everything down, making it really, really tiny. You can download the image, certainly, and that's a good thing to do, download it yourself and have it on your computer. But when you go to print it, maybe you just want to print out that household. If you have any sort of clipping tool or something that you can, I know on a Mac, I'm a Mac user. There are a lot of different tools that we can use to just highlight something and just print that portion of it. So that might be a better option for you. You also might want to consider, if you are just taking out one household to print that, print it instead of like a regular sheet of paper, instead of printing it. Do I have a sheet of paper? No, this will work. So instead of printing it so it's this way, print it landscape. That way you can make it bigger going across here. So you might want to try that as well. But yeah, trying to get that entire ledger down to an 8.5 by 11, that's tough, and still make it legible. That's tough. Tricia says, sometimes it only filled maybe half the sheet of paper. Yeah, and just that happens sometimes, that just because the original image is so big, the printer's like, I don't know what to do with this. So, yeah. Oh, Gene had a fun finding in the 1950 census. He says, my dad's cousins in Seattle had a note that they were in California for 3 months. You see, that's what I love about the 1950 census. Is that genealogically relevant? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, does it give you any more information than you had before? Who knows? But just knowing that, it's a little bit of insight into the family. And maybe you did have a gap for those cousins. Now you can fill it in because of the 1950 census. Ryan says, another thing I noticed is that my great-grandmother, she said the name of her son, it sounded like the English translation of his name due to her Irish accent. Yeah, sometimes we don't think about the impact of how something is said. We think about enumerators or whoever, they're writing it down and they didn't know how to spell it, but we don't often think about how it sounded and what they wrote. A surname that I research is Daubenmeier, and it is, as you probably figured out, is a rather German family. And Daubenmeier, the families today typically spell it with some variation of either D-A-U-B, fill in the rest of the name, or D-O-B, fill in the rest of the name. But they typically begin with the letter D. But you go back into the 1850, 1860, 1870 censuses when the German immigrants were talking to the enumerators, and he would say that his name was Heinrich Troppenmeier, and that D sounded a lot like a T. So in those earlier censuses, if you're not finding Daubenmeier, you really need to also be looking for Taubenmeier with a T. Michael asks, in the heading of house number, is that the address of the house or the number of houses they visited that day? Depends on the column. So the very first column, the very first, and it is actually, well, it's technically column 2, is the house or apartment number. So that really is supposed to be the address. And it's kind of interesting because when you are in a rural area where they didn't yet have house numbers for everybody, like I'm looking at this one page, I'm not going to try to share the screen again, but it's actually saying second house on right, third house on right, and it's trying to describe them. So that first column is supposed to be the house number, the address number. And then the second column is the dwelling number. So which is supposed to be the dwellings in order that they were visited. So a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Let's see, do we have any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions right now other than, hey, what in the world? Why could we not see your screen? I don't know. All right. Well, everyone, I do hope that despite the tech gremlins that this was helpful to you. If so, give this video a like or a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And both here on YouTube and on Facebook, I do share more genealogy tips and tricks and all that good stuff. So if you're not already subscribed or you don't already like my page, feel free to follow and subscribe as well. All right, with that, everyone, I hope that you're making some great discoveries in the 1950 census and elsewhere, and we will catch you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.